Imagine a spiritual tradition that challenges the very notion of divinity. That's right, a philosophy that teaches that the path to understanding existence and awakening does not depend on the intervention of a higher being, but on the inner transformation of each individual. This perspective contrasts with the predominant view in many religions and, over the centuries, has sparked deep reflections and, at times, even controversies. We are talking about Buddhism, a tradition that transcends the concept of blind faith and invites each person to look within themselves in search of truth. Instead of an absolute dogma, it proposes a path of self-knowledge, inquiry, and continuous practice. Welcome to the Consciencia and Bemistar channel, a space dedicated to exploring spiritual and philosophical themes that help us better understand the mind, life, and our role in the world. In today's video, we will dive into a fascinating and often misunderstood question: why is Buddhism not based on the belief in gods? Before we move forward, it's important to emphasize that this video is not intended to impose ideologies or disrespect beliefs. Buddhism, in its essence, encourages reflection, questioning, and freedom of thought, even when it comes to Buddha's own teachings. That's why I invite you to join this journey with an open mind, always respecting all forms of faith and understanding. Whether you are a person of faith, a committed skeptic, or simply someone seeking new perspectives, this is an open space for reflection and learning. Our purpose here is to explore ideas, challenge pre-established concepts, and expand our understanding of different spiritual paths. In Buddhism, truth is not something imposed by a supreme authority, but something that is revealed through personal experience and consistent practice. Are you ready for this journey of self-discovery? Then let's begin. First, it's important to clarify some concepts. When we talk about God, we generally refer to a creator entity, omniscient and all-powerful, responsible for governing the universe. This is the predominant view in theistic religions such as Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. But here's the key point: Buddha never emphasized this idea. His focus was not on speculating about the origin of the universe or the existence of a supreme being, but rather on understanding human suffering and finding a way to overcome it in the present. When asked about the existence of God or the nature of the cosmos, he often remained silent. Why did he take this stance? Because for Buddha, these questions were not essential to achieving liberation. Instead of getting lost in metaphysical debates, he directed his teachings towards something practical: how to end suffering and attain nirvana, a state of peace and liberation. Over the centuries, most Buddhist traditions have embraced a non-theistic worldview. However, this does not mean that all Buddhists are atheists. In some branches, there are beliefs in deities and supernatural beings, but they are not seen as absolute creators. Rather, they are symbolic representations of enlightened qualities. Why does Buddhism differ from the idea of a creator god? At the heart of Buddhism lies a fundamental principle: self-knowledge and personal responsibility. The Buddha taught that the wisdom and compassion needed to overcome suffering already exist within each of us. There is no need to rely on a higher entity to attain liberation. The path is in our own hands. We can think of this as a hidden potential within us, waiting to be awakened. But this idea represents a profound shift in how we approach spirituality. Instead of seeking external salvation, Buddhism invites us to take full responsibility for our own spiritual growth. Our happiness does not depend on prayers or offerings to a deity, but rather on practices such as meditation, ethical cultivation, and the development of wisdom. The Buddha's final words were clear: be a light unto yourself. He encouraged us to question, investigate, and not blindly follow any doctrine or authority. This call for self-reliance reinforces the idea that enlightenment does not come from outside, but from deepening our own experience and understanding. Buddhism teaches a practical path for this transformation, known as the Noble Eightfold Path, a set of ethical and meditative principles that help shape our mind and behavior. Instead of worshiping a deity, Buddhist practice focuses on inner transformation. Meditation, for example, helps us develop mindfulness and mental clarity, allowing us to see reality as it is, free from the illusions that generate suffering. Buddhist ethics, in turn, guide us to live in a way that minimizes suffering for ourselves and others. What about karma and rebirth? One of Buddhism's central beliefs is karma, the idea that our actions, physical, mental, and verbal, shape our future experiences. But unlike some traditions that involve divine judgment, Buddhism does not have a supreme being controlling or recording our actions. We ourselves set our destiny in motion, reaping the results of our choices. This view is closely tied to the concept of Anatta, or not self, which challenges the idea of a fixed, unchanging soul. According to Buddhism, our identity is not something permanent, but a constant flow of thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Instead of a solid and eternal self, we are like a river in motion, always changing. If this idea seems complex, you're not alone. Philosophers and scholars have debated this for centuries, but the key point is that clinging to a fixed identity can be a major source of suffering. When we learn to let go of this rigid sense of self, we find greater freedom to live with flexibility and compassion. Karma and rebirth further reinforce personal responsibility in Buddhism. There are no shortcuts or divine interventions that can erase the consequences of our actions. Everything we do, think, and say shapes our future existence. So if we want a more harmonious and fulfilling life, we need to start now with the choices we make in the present. Buddhism in practice. Experience over belief. The Buddha always emphasized that truth should not be blindly accepted but directly experienced. He did not want his followers to merely trust his words. He wanted them to test his teachings in their own lives. That's why Buddhism places great importance on meditation and mindful living. Through mindfulness, we can observe our own thought patterns, recognize the roots of suffering, and understand the impermanent nature of all things. This process cannot be done by anyone else for us. Each of us must walk this path on our own. Additionally, Buddhism invites us to practice compassion and interconnectedness. By realizing that nothing is fixed and that we are all connected, we can cultivate a more compassionate outlook, both toward ourselves and others. So, why don't Buddhists believe in God? The answer is not a simple rejection of the divine, but rather an affirmation of a different approach to spirituality. Buddhism places direct personal experience above any doctrine. It does not seek answers in external entities, but in the exploration of one's own consciousness. Instead of debating God's existence, Buddhism invites each of us to embark on an inner journey, a quest for the limitless wisdom and compassion that already reside within us. We can imagine this as a treasure map where X marks the spot, but instead of gold or jewels, the true prize is a deep understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Buddhism challenges us not to accept ready-made truths, but to investigate for ourselves. Enlightenment is not something that can be given to us. It must be cultivated through practice, reflection, and direct experience. What do you think about this perspective? The Buddhist view of God may seem radical or even provocative, but it invites us to look inward and trust our own experience. What do you think about this approach? Does it feel liberating, challenging, or intriguing? Leave your comment and share your reflections. If you enjoyed this content, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations on Buddhism and spirituality. Remember, the answers we seek are within us. We just need to look closely. See you on the next journey.